Here's how you bring light into the world. You get up in the morning and you scream, God!
Today in New York City, there is a new movement of people expressing Judaism in unconventional and awesome ways. This is a community asserting their Jewish identity, defying the norm, and doing so at any cost. These are those stories. This is Punk Jews. From Hassidic punk rockers to Jewish African-American activists, we cover badass politics, art, fashion, philosophy, and religion that you can't see anywhere else. Like many religions and cultures, Judaism struggles to bridge the gap between tradition and the modern world. Everyone seems to have a different and often contradicting interpretation of Judaism's ancient traditions. Does being Jewish mean eating bagels and lox? Or lighting a menorah on Hanukkah? Is it necessary to make a pilgrimage all the way to Jerusalem? Or is it enough to just walk over to the kosher deli? Do you need to belong to a synagogue? How about if you're a Hebrew school dropout? And what is the meaning behind the long beards and black hats? Challahs, shofars, bar mitzvahs, the Horah. We were raised in Jewish families, and even we wrestle with these questions. So we decided to go on a mission to gain real insight into what it means to be Jewish. But instead of speaking with rabbis, scholars, and academics, we asked punk rockers, hip-hop MCs, artists, and activists what Judaism means to them and how they choose to express it.
My name is Yishai, and I love to scream to Hashem all day, every day. I would describe my music as a punch in the face of godliness. I would compare it to old school punk rock.
Moshiach Oi is a Hassidic punk rock band from Long Island, New York, who praise God by screaming at the top of their lungs. Their goal is to bring the Mashiach, or Messiah, into the world through their music.
1, 2, 3, 4.
We're here in the Carlebach Shul, as it's well known, and here in New York, the Carlebach Shul is also a mecca for people who wouldn't fit in otherwise in a shul. So it's entirely appropriate for us to be here because, we don't necessarily fit in with Jewish programming. And for me to play here is an honor and a pleasure.
Alright, so punk rock isn't really a spectator sport, you can like get up and move and like mosh, smash into me, punch me in the face.
The crowd was awesome. The crowd was dancing, the crowd was lively. That's what I expect from the Carlebach Shul, because this is a place that the roots are about being alive, dancing, singing, we got that here. I wasn't disappointed. So we played for, we played like more than half our set, and then I was told by the rabbi who was sitting behind me, he's like, yo, you guys gotta turn it down.
What happened? I don't know. I was singing, and next thing I knew, I couldn't hear myself.
See, people think there's like a half Mashiach volume. No. We don't have a halfway. Yeah.
People complained. They said it was too loud for them. What can I say? I guess Upper West Side isn't ready for Mashiach.
Other people turned down the PA, and the mic shut off.
They shut us off in the middle of the song, better get ready. Ironically, they're not ready. That's what it comes down to.
It's a punk rock show. If the neighbors don't complain, it's probably not authentic.
We want to really shake people up, get them out of their seat.
This song is about this world we live in. This world is sheker. This world is nothing. There's only Hashem. People, wake up!
Mashiach means the Redeemer, and Oi means it's like an exclamation point. Some Jews are like, we want Mashiach. Yeah, every day we pray 3 times a day. We want Mashiach, Mashiach. So we're like, no, it's like Mashiach Oi. We want Mashiach Oi. Like now, in your face, Mashiach. When I'm on stage screaming, I'm trying as hard as I can to only focus on one thing, that I'm doing this for the sake of God, and not, God forbid, for my own sake, only to, make God's name great in the world.
The members of Moshiach Oi are part of a unique subgroup of Hassidic Judaism that call themselves Nanachs, who can be seen in Israel dancing in the streets and on tanks, singing Nanach Nachman Nachman Meuman, which is the signature of their spiritual leader, Rebbe Nachman. They also put up stickers and graffiti that bear his holy name, and believe the more nanach they spread, the sooner the Messiah will come.
Welcome to Long Beach. Welcome to the Moshiach Oi Palace. This is where the magic happens. We call this place Camp Shabbos. This is like the studio. You know, this is like the concept, like the brain. And what you see live is more like the heart and the lungs.
I grew up on Long Island. My mom's a convert from when I was a kid. I grew up going to yeshiva, and growing up going to yeshiva made me hate Judaism and hate Jews. Like when I was a teenager, I didn't want to tell people I was Jewish because I went to yeshiva full of rabbis who were just like full of themselves and told you what to do. After like age like 14, 15, I just like stopped. I just like started doing lots of drugs. Like I got really into punk rock. I used to go to a lot of punk shows, and that was my life, you know? I don't even remember like 5 years of my life because I was like totally like a drugged out zombie.
He went into the gutter, he went into the darkness, and they say like in Hassidic thought, like in order to really get to like the highest heights, you have to sometimes go to the lowest depths.
After hitting rock bottom, Yishai met Mike, who helped him turn his life around and rediscover his Jewish roots. They recruited Mitchell and Pesach, and Moshiach Oi was born.
Mike, the guitar player, Moshiach Oi, is a very special person. You know, he's a very close friend of mine. All the people I'm really close with, people who are good friends of mine, are people I like have a lot of respect for. People who have really taught me a lot. Because all the friends I used to have, they didn't teach me anything. They taught me how to get high. Thank God, eventually, I found my own way and came back to on my own. And now I'm able to reinterpret what it means to be a Jew on my own terms. We're at Earth Matters Cafe. It's our organic grocery and cafe on the Lower East Side. We're here learning the holy teachings of Tzaddik Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. Been doing this every Thursday night for a little while now. People have told me that what I do is sacrilegious. I remember when I was in yeshiva, there was one guy who heard my song Shema Yisrael, and the song is based on a traditional Jewish prayer. You know, the tune Shema Yisrael. That's actually a traditional Jewish tune and prayer. And I played the song for one guy, and he said that I'm taking the prayer and lowering it. I think that's just stupidity, because sometimes you have to express it in different ways that people in the world today can relate to. Not everyone can relate to going to a synagogue, sitting down. It can be kind of boring. If I scream Shema Yisrael at the top of my lungs, maybe it'll make people get into it a little more and really feel it. You're supposed to feel it. You're supposed to be on fire for it. So here's how you bring light into the world. First, you get up in the morning and you scream, "Ah! Da Yitzhara!" And then you say, "Na nach Nachman Nachman Reuman." Na nach Nachman Nachman Reuman. And then say it again, "Na nach Nachman Nachman Reuman." I would recommend spend the whole day saying Na nach Nachman Nachman Reuman. After that day, your life will probably be completely changed. Only after saying Na nach 500,000 times and screaming to Hashem from the bottom of your lungs to the bottom of your gut. Then only after all that, I would recommend maybe opening up the Torah, opening up a book and reading.
Thank you. We're Moshiach Oi. We have CDs and propaganda in the back. Please enjoy. Welcome Moshiach, because he's here now. Amen. Ken Yeh Ratzon.
Punk is usually a word to describe a genre of music played by people with mohawks and safety pins in their ears. But the true essence of punk simply refers to people who don't conform to the mainstream, who express themselves freely no matter what anybody else thinks. In the punk Jews movement, Not everyone expresses themselves by screaming into a microphone, but what they all have in common is taking their Jewish identity and using it to challenge stereotypes, break down barriers, and stand up for what they believe in. We met someone who did just that. Cal Holster left the ultra-Orthodox village of New Square, but returned to expose a child abuse sex scandal that had been going on for generations. This community adheres to an extremely strict interpretation of Judaism that does not tolerate any dissension.
A power struggle turns destructive in a Jewish community.
The victim's family believes he was attacked because he boycotted a local synagogue.
Several people woke up to find their car windows broken and vehicles vandalized, and they believe the synagogue's rabbi is behind it.
We're actually terrified of everyone by now.
They believe the vandalism is really a message from the leadership here at Congregation of New Square.
They'll do anything to terrorize us, to interrogate us.
Her husband of 25 years is lying in a hospital bed with burns over half his body.
Orthodox laws is different than the law in America.
Retaliation for not abiding by the rules in this Hassidic community has simply gone too far.
We don't agree with dangerous stuff. We don't agree with confronting people. We don't agree with nothing of those things.
The windows were broken.
It's a village of peace. It's a village of peace.
New Square may be one of the most difficult places in the world to achieve any kind of reform, but one man is calling for change.
I grew up in a town 40 minutes north from the city called New Square, which is a Hassidic, Orthodox, as extreme as it gets, Jewish group of people.
The people of New Square are part of a Hassidic sect that originates from a town in the Ukraine called Skver. After the Holocaust, its survivors came to America to rebuild their community and founded the village of New Square.
When you drive through the streets in New Square, you'll see signs on your right and left. On your right, there's a red sign that says Frauen, which is women, and on your left you have a blue sign that says Männer, which is men. So men and women walk on two different sides of the street. Just for people to have a context of how different the community that I grew up in to the rest of the Western world, my grandmother has more than 200 great-grandchildren, so it's a huge, huge family.
In this insular town, Cal suffered unthinkable abuse at the hands of one of the most powerful people in the community, who he describes as the head rabbi's chief of staff. This man had keys to every public building in New Square, which enabled him to abuse countless victims after hours.
We'll get in his car, he will drive me into the parking lot of the Rivka Health Center, take me in there. Late at nights, lock up the doors, set the alarm, go upstairs, take me into one of the doctor's offices, and pull my pants down.
As a number of stories began to surface, Cal's abuser fled to Israel and was never brought to justice. Cal ended up on the streets, addicted to drugs for most of his adolescence. Ending up in a rehab facility, one day he decided he had had enough.
I hit a point where I was either gonna die or my life was gonna change.
Cal started Voices of Dignity, dedicated to ending the cycle of sexual abuse in the Orthodox community. His organization connects victims to emotional, psychological, and legal support, and provides educational training for children and adults.
It was extremely disturbing and frustrating to see that kids that grew up in my community didn't have a place where they can call if they were being violated, if they were being abused, if they were previously subjugated to sexual abuse. So I started a conversation, absolutely in the dark. Started figuring out, what is a nonprofit? How do you run an organization? You need a board. Who do you put on the board? So I had to make a decision. Am I going to be the person who's going to come out, share my experience, and push toward change, risking being persecuted for not being Hasidic, not being Orthodox? And my decision was yes. But the dynamics in the community is extremely, extremely complicated. There are mothers that know about abuse and don't want to report because of what their family is going to look like, who they're going to marry, how it's going to hinder marriage, how they're going to be shamed. The implications of someone coming forth and standing up for justice and reporting somebody is huge.
After fundraising in Manhattan to get Voices of Dignity off the ground, it was time for Cal to create awareness and support where it really counts. So he set out for New Square, so Cal could start laying the groundwork to bring change to the community. New Square is run by what is called the VOD, the committee that makes all the decisions and handles the security of the town. They take extreme measures to separate themselves from the outside world, for fear that it will endanger their traditional way of life. So it's extremely rare that cameras ever make it into the community.
People are stopping and looking and trying to figure out what's going on. Very soon they might just call it into the radio and like have us stopped and interrogated. Shalom.
Yeah.
How are you?
Baruch
Hashem. How are you? If there's one person that you don't want to see, that would be him. He's kind of known in the community as the snitch, or like the messenger, the one that executes some of the dirty work. Be interesting to see what happens.
While Cal has been soliciting support for Voices of Dignity, he has yet to gain the support of his parents, which he needs more than anything in order to make a difference in New Square.
I never had a sit-down conversation with my mother and father and talk openly about abuse.
There's an incredible beauty to Square. And there's a beautiful element around the Rebbe and around the tradition and around like the Chassidut, like of the singing and the family life. But then there's a whole nother element that is not introduced to the community because it's so sheltered.
What was your experience when you found out that I was sexually abused?
We couldn't believe that there is such thing existing, because we were so pure and so innocent, and we didn't think it exists. I definitely felt like this is unbelievable.
Like when I think back and people are like, why didn't you share it with your parents? Like, why didn't anyone know? Like, because quite frankly, like, home wasn't really a place where I felt comfortable coming home to. Just the thought of coming to an authority figure, not only would I not be believed, I would be the one who would be punished.
Anything associated with sexuality is just repressed. Men and women walk to different sides of the street. Men can't look at women until the day they get married. This is not a culture yet where if somebody's being abused outside of the home, that they can come home and talk about it. Or if somebody's being abused at home, that they can go out and talk about it and know they're safe.
Think of the weight of abuse on a child and being terrified to talk about it, not knowing where to place it.
The magnitude of the effects of sexual abuse goes beyond what you can imagine. I sit with people where like there is not a happy moment in their existence, but for some reason there is this mentality of like, if we don't talk about it, the problem doesn't exist. Because I know people in Square who for years abuse kids, and I speak to their victims that have left Square and they still walk around, they still live here. Where is the responsibility of the community?
How can we look at the whole issue of sexual abuse and deal with it in a way where we really are changing culture? We're changing the next generation growing up in a safer world.
After an hour of presenting his case, Cal's mom agreed to host meetings for mothers to learn how to identify signs of sexual abuse, an opportunity that she unfortunately never had while Cal was growing up.
I felt very proud that I could share something that I can do for you as my child and for the community.
And that's what mothers need to know, that it's doable. And with you and I, the people that have survived it and are courageous enough to come back, to end the cycle, they're literally building a new world.
After a successful meeting with his parents, Cal wanted to show us around his hometown to revisit some of his childhood memories.
Sure.
Yes?
Yes. What is this?
A show. Show. What's your name?
My name? Holtzler. The funny thing is they're all looking at me and they can't even figure out that I actually grew up just like them, dressed like them, grew up in the same community, speaking the same language. Oh, that? It's a mic. I definitely feel like an other. Like, I know how they view me as different than them, so there's that distance a little bit.
As we continued to explore New Square, we noticed a car trailing behind us.
We being followed?
I don't think so.
Well, we're working here with Cal, who's from New Square, and we went to his mother's house and we're doing.
How you doing?
Hey, what's up, Tommy? How are you?
Good.
What's the pictures?
Were you sent to check up on us?
Just checking, you know, they called, they're nervous.
Who called?
He's on his phone right now.
They're gonna call it in. Like at the moment, the Erste Hilfe, like the Shomrim here, have been dispatched. Kind of internal cops, the Erste Hilfe, like the Shomrim. What I don't want to happen is for them to see me as stirring up trouble in the community. And I definitely don't want the cameras to be broken. And that could happen.
After being followed around by the internal police, Cal was becoming more and more nervous about putting our safety in jeopardy.
So we just have people that came out of the school with like suspicion and cameras. It would be a good idea to like go back into the car and not invoke so much.
At this point, it had become blatantly obvious that our presence was not welcome, and there was no way we could continue filming without escalating the situation. So we decided it was in our best interests to leave New Square as soon as possible. 1 month later, we met up with Cal again.
Went out on our way to go see Gitti Holtzler, who's my cousin, who suffered sexual abuse from a family member and has lived with it ever since.
Since Gitti left New Square, Cal is the only family member who she speaks to, and he has been a key supporter in her rehabilitation.
Hello.
Hi there.
How are you?
My uncle basically owned me. He raped me, he abused me physically, sexually. He did everything you could possibly think of. And that went on from 9 to 14.
Gitti came forward with her story at age 25 to the Rockland County Sheriff's Office.
When I started talking about it in public, he actually threatened to kill me. And I know for a fact he has a gun on him, not licensed. The authorities that I've gone to have not been able to do anything.
As is the case with many victims in New Square, the statute of limitations has passed. The statute states that victims of sexual abuse have 5 years from the time they turn 18 to press charges. So in Gitti's case, there was nothing the legal authorities could do.
I don't wake up in the morning without having a really bad nightmare. I'll wake up screaming and like going crazy.
Gitti hasn't heard her uncle's voice in over a decade, but she has agreed to have Cal reach out to her abuser so that she can finally have some closure.
Have you ever thought of it?
Of what?
If you saw him, what you would want to tell him?
If I would actually want to confront him, what I would want to tell him?
Yeah.
No, my mind goes crazy when I think like that, so I have no idea. What are you going to say?
I'm going to ask him if he has any regret for what he's done. What do you really want to tell him?
What I really want to get out of him is where the place is where he took me.
Would that help you with your own closure?
That would help me with my own closure. I think that would also help me maybe to find proof.
Because if we have one opportunity to call him and to keep him on the phone, and I don't know if he's going to pick up, but can I tell him I'm sitting with you?
No.
No. Hello? Hey, Mindy?
Yeah?
How are you? This is Kami speaking. Your nephew, Kami Holtzler. I wanted to ask you about the accusations about the stories that has been coming out about you and Gitti.
I'm not going to discuss anything with anybody.
Would you be willing to talk about it in person?
No.
Do you feel that it's something that is completely made up, or is it something that has truth to it?
I'm not even going to discuss it with you.
Knowing you as somebody I was...
I'm no longer part of the whole... I'm not your uncle.
You're not my uncle anymore?
I'm not your uncle anymore, so that's... Consider me out of the family.
And your children are not my cousins?
They don't want to be your cousins. They don't want to be part of the whole family.
You feel like you did zero harm to her, do you?
I'm not going down that way. You are not my judge. Neither am I attorney.
Well, thanks for having the conversation with me. Wow. Wow.
I really feel good right now. This guy couldn't even say once that everything, like...
He was able to talk about everything, but
Right.
discuss anything about
Like, if nothing would have happened, he wouldn't have a
Right.
problem saying that.
I was really impressed. I was really impressed with her willingness to talk about it, the fact that we can talk about it openly is a success.
Gitti has been seeing a therapist and is making great progress in managing how the trauma she endured impacts her daily life. Meanwhile, Cal has been moving forward with organizing training sessions for mothers in the Orthodox community.
We're inviting 10 to 50 mothers in the community. Some of them are teachers, some of them are just mothers that either have kids that have gone through sexual abuse, they're dealing with abuse and don't really know how to deal with it. So we started doing these trainings. We're bringing in mental health professionals and therapists to speak with these mothers. We're giving them information about abuse, signs and symptoms, where to reach out. And that's happening now. I'm not coming out against the Orthodox world. I'm from any point of view that you can look at it from a Jewish context. What's being done around sexual abuse is wrong. And it is the responsibility of those communities to stop that. So hopefully with us pushing, presenting options, together with the community, we can do something about it.
Many Jews celebrate their heritage at a gathering like this. The Israeli Day Parade takes place annually in New York City and is attended by hundreds of thousands of people. It's a celebration of Israel and all things Jewish. From Hebrew schools to Jewish summer camps, college student groups, grandmothers, senators on the campaign trail, hippie bands, pro-Palestine groups, born-again Christians?
Jesus is God! Jesus is God! The whole world's gonna come against the Jews.
Even ultra-Orthodox who are anti-Israel are all represented here. But there are still some people who don't fit into any of these mainstream groups, so they go underground and create a subculture unlike anything we've ever seen before.
Cholent spans all occupations, all income levels, all neighborhoods, all groups. It's Jews from the fringes of everywhere.
People who used to be religious are not religious anymore, some people who are kind of undecided, some people who just don't fit in anywhere else.
It's like a phenomenon that only happens in New York City.
I've never seen a place like this anywhere else in the world.
The one thing that binds everyone in the Punk Jews movement is an underground gathering called Cholent. Its location is not advertised, but word of mouth brings people together. We heard that these were some of the most wild parties in New York City, so we had to check it out. The first time we tried to film there, some people were really freaked out by the camera. One guy even told us that if his family found out that he attended, they would disown him. You see, this weekly gathering is a sanctuary for people leaving the ultra-religious world of Hasidic Judaism, and for many of them, it's their first step into the outside world. It's kind of like going from an ultra-religious lifestyle and stepping into a Jewish Woodstock rave. It took us a year of attending ourselves to earn the trust of a man named Isaac, who started the party 10 years ago, to let us film and tell the story of this underground Jewish gathering.
Many people will ask, what's your agenda? What are you trying to do? We have no agenda. But what we're trying to do is provide community and a space for people to explore themselves and to explore the other.
It's almost, in a certain way, it's kind of like a support group. It's a very eclectic group of people.
It's a wonderfully diverse spectrum of people. You have religious people, not religious people. And so you'll have people that are totally Hassidic, that will come dressed in long black coats. And you'll have people that have come with their mohawks and never wore a yarmulke on their head.
Cholent is a stew cooked traditionally for the Sabbath.
We serve it here on Thursday night. It's an apt description of the people that attend.
You've got people who are artists here, and you've got people who are very well-to-do, and they go at the same time. You've got a homeless person just chilling out next to them.
We have lectures, a lecture series where we hope that, that people can present something of their own making, a film, or read some poetry, or give a lecture.
Come on, this is crazy. Until 4 in the morning, people are dancing, singing, drinking,
yes,
being crazy.
Yeah. Typical evening can be anything from 20 people just sitting down talking amongst themselves, or it could be a smash 'em bash 'em band playing at full throttle at high volume, whereby the concrete walls are reverberating. Soon you have just people going, rocking from side to side, and then people starting, dancing on the tables, dancing on anything that that doesn't move, and it's a rollicking time.
These parties get so crazy that Cholent is not able to keep a home for too long before getting kicked out.
And we bounced around from place to place, like 3 locations in Brooklyn. We then moved to Manhattan, and we were in a synagogue, and then we were in another synagogue. They threw us out of there, and we went back to the first synagogue, and now they've thrown us out yet again. One of the biggest compliments that I can feel that people have that would give to Cholent will be that when they arrived, and they came even for the first time, they felt totally comfortable.
In Cholent, there's no one who's going to say you should be dressed a certain way or doing a certain thing.
This is something that's really interesting to me. It's the way that it's keeping me connected to Judaism in a way that I wouldn't normally be able to experience.
And that's why, Cholent is a disorganization, because being organized or being official or is back to being conventional, and we're escaping convention. Convention is constricting. Convention is almost anti-growth, anti-change, so none of that.
A very common stereotype is that of a Jewish grandmother.
Hey, Grandma. Hi. Hello. Oh. Come in. We're going to sit outside.
Even my own grandmother is no exception. Well, we found someone who smashes even this stereotype to bits. Meet the amazing Amy Yoga Yenta.
Mama always said, Amy, this yoga mishgash of yours will make the mishpucha proud.
I'm known as the amazing Amy, contortionist and unique yoga dancer. I perform flowing feats of flexibility that few folks can achieve at any age. The Yoga Yenta is a character I created to celebrate my heritage through yoga.
All right, already. I'll do my stick. Woo!
And it's meant to be funny and sweet and charming. Well, Yoga Yenta comes out in this schmata old bathrobe, and that actually did belong to my mother, so that she'll look like a typical schleppy old Jewish lady. And there's a surprise reveal where I take off the bathrobe and the kerchief, and this is the outfit that I'm wearing. And as I'm performing very difficult movements, I exclaim in Yiddish things like,
Oi, gewalt, is this Meshugana or what?
I have a wonderful musician who plays live klezmer accordion music for me. Yoga Yenta really is me, and I'm really her. And so she's a way of paying homage to my my cultural background, but also expressing myself.
Do you make a lot of money doing this?
No, I actually have made almost no money. Most of my performances are for free because I do it because I just love it so much. And then afterward, when I perform, people always come up to me and they say things like, "That was so awesome. I really need to go back to yoga class." I had another performing career that was more extreme than what I do now. And I was doing very advanced martial arts, but I injured myself. I retired thinking I was never going to perform again. I spent 15 years not in retirement, suffering in misery, hating not performing, depressed, cranky. It was awful, but I never stopped doing yoga. I thought to myself, well, I'm reaching an advanced age, and I have an advanced yoga skill. So I reinvented myself as the amazing Amy, the yoga dancer. I work out 365 days a year. I never take a day off. Besides being obsessive and compulsive about performing, I'm obsessive and compulsive about science fiction and fantasy. And I've been basically collecting science fiction and fantasy for decades. I love living in a library. I love being surrounded by books everywhere. I love literature. And I love artwork, and I've actually been a freelance illustrator, and I've done science fiction fantasy illustration. I was on the cover of Galaxy Science Fiction magazine, which is a really big thing if you're a science fiction person. The point of my performances is not only to entertain them, but also to inspire them.
Do you love what you do?
I adore what I do. I live to perform. I perform to live. It's the greatest joy of my life.
The metropolitan area of Tel Aviv has the largest and one of the most diverse Jewish populations in the world. Tel Aviv also holds the biggest and longest-running Pride Parade in the entire Middle East, and the only one not met with harsh protests. It attracts people from all over the world to celebrate diversity under an Israeli flag, and culminates with a giant rave along the Mediterranean. Jewish culture has confronted all kinds of prejudices through feminism, the labor movement, and now gay rights. But there is another community that is still struggling to have their voice heard.
Anything that brings us together builds up the world. This is unity. I said this is unity. This is unity. That's what's up, D1.
What I love is Jewish hip-hop to the next level. Hip-hop in every holy language, all put together. English, Hebrew, Aramaic, Arabic, Yiddish, and Latin.
Fist to the sky, black Semitic man militant. If you want a mission, build a vision, stay vigilant. I ain't trying to play without the scriptures, I'd have died. Educate the population about the changes of the times.
When we started rhyming in yeshiva as the way to learn, people in yeshiva didn't take too kindly to it. It was blatantly, obviously racist. One apartment I called up, and the woman asked me straight up over the phone, "Are you white?" And I said, "No." And she was like, "No, well, that's a little bit not good. This is my house we're talking about," and hangs up. Moses himself couldn't get an apartment in Borough Park. Not with his black wife, who was from the Sudan. Nah, he wouldn't get an apartment in Borough Park.
One race, one world, Huskers ain't a show inside. Why I love it ain't a question, I demand understanding. Demanded in the shuls, churches, and the masajid. Al-alam al-wahid biha olam echad. Forget the flags, it's all unity, one nation under God.
Well, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Build bridges, not walls. Unity elevates, divisions destroy. It's just that simple.
While of being a black Jewish hip-hop artist, he seemed to be the most unique Jew that we could imagine, but he was quick to point out that he's part of a much larger community.
Some people still believe the lie that Jewish America is a subset of white America, that Jew equals white. People don't even realize that there's over 400,000 Jews of color in America right now. Black Jews, Latino Jews, Asian Jews. We're about to link up with Manish Tana, Chase Rishon, my boy. We've been hanging out for years. One of the more prominent Black Jews in the community, and just get ready for Shabbos.
Shabbos, also known as Shabbat, is the weekly day of rest in Judaism. It begins Friday at sundown and ends Saturday night. During this time, observant Jews like Wylov can't work, travel, or use electricity, which means he won't perform, ride the subway, or even use his computer. Shabbos is traditionally welcomed with a ritual Friday night dinner.
I am Chase Rishon, also known as the blogger Manish Tana.
ManishTana.net is a website that Chase runs to provide a community resource for Black Jews around the world. The Hebrew phrase Manish Tana means, why is this different?
I blog because I feel that there are issues that involving Jews of color that don't really get expressed or put out there, and that there are a lot of Jews of color that think they're the only ones that go through this or that they feel this, and then they read the blog like, yes, there's somebody else out there who understands what I'm talking about.
So why don't you tell us about your family?
Orthodox, Jewish.
How many brothers and sisters do you have?
1 brother, 3 sisters.
How many generations of Jews are there in your family?
I believe I'm 5th at this point.
People often find it hard to believe that Chase was born Jewish, even though he can trace his family's Judaism back to the 1800s.
Yeah, it's always, where are you from? America. Your parents, America. They're America. It's like they're looking for the point of conversion. Okay, where does Jew intersect with Black? And then no, there's no interception point. I'm sorry.
You want to freestyle, man?
I think I can pull it off now. I've got a L'chaim or 3 in my system.
Need a beat?
What, can you beatbox?
No, nah.
Okay.
Not even a little.
So, 100% organic like petroleum. I'm covering all surface like Rust-Oleum. You know it's Y, the L, the O, the V, the E, the one that you saw last night on 3D on TV. Check me in HD in all dimensions. Direct attention to the section that's bringing elevation with no detention of emotion like motion. The lotion that's going beneath the surface. The purpose is higher. I'm coming down like fire. Ignite this like a spire going into the atmosphere. It's on Why Love Shem Speed. This is our year 5770. Watch as I'm telling these scriptures to wake up the vegetables like Pericles that make a mythology after me. YLOVE, check me. Energy from the 613.
Shabbat is the only time everyone is in the house at the same time. And everyone is doing like 8 billion things at a time. My mom and my sister in the kitchen cooking, while my brother and my dad are usually doing some kind of cleaning. And there's like clothes ironing. And everyone's trying to get in the shower after the other one. It's like a beam of light in a box full of mirrors. They're just bouncing all over the place at any given time. My mom is a demon in the kitchen. In a good way.
Right. I needed the space. I have the space now. But didn't I tell you to put a cardboard on the show?
I'm gonna put a foil in.
Put a cardboard on it.
Y'all can't tell, but it's really starting to smell like Shabbat in here.
You got into my stuff.
Beep, beep.
Oh.
Okay, clean that mess up. No, I said that goes in the meat side. That's right. Yeah. Good. All right. No. One in the chair.
Oh.
No. That's the.
Behind
No, that's there.
Sure.
No, right. No, put that. This is great. This is great. Okay, great. What? Menorah's time.
Oh. So what are we gonna do now?
Wine. We need to get it.
Mad wine?
Mad wine. The wine is my job to bring in for Shabbat. We should have people following us with the camera around all the time. People will think we're somebody.
Surprise.
Who are those guys? No, we're just Black Jews.
Don't mind us.
On the ground, the stone shines. The water gonna flow. Check the fire in the sky. Then the horn gon' blow. Then we all gon' fly. Connect to the redemption. Walking to the sunrise. Gon' cross the Wi-Fi. Download the Most High. Believe in the dream. Both eyes to the prize. The place that all nations gonna praise one God.
There's some people who think that all Jews are white, and there's people who think that, you know, Black Jews have to prove their Jewishness, prove their Jewish identity. Like, if you're white, it makes sense.
I suppose it's just, that's all the media ever really covers. The Woody Allen, Jerry Seinfeld kind of Jew. It just doesn't enter people's heads that Jew does not automatically equate with white.
So what do you hope to accomplish towards that goal?
I try to hope to accomplish that these interviews aren't necessary. If this is the last generation of us being a novelty or something exotic. A Jew to me has nothing to do with skin color.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
Bibren. Bäbren. Wie sag ich Fischl mit der Emmers? Weiß Reif ist nie nach.
Yiddish was the main language spoken by Jews in Europe more than a half a century ago. It fused together Hebrew, German, and Slavic languages. In the early 20th century, when Jews started immigrating to the United States, they brought a booming Yiddish theater industry to New York that would thrive along 2nd Avenue on the Lower East Side until the 1950s. It was a theatrical movement that is argued to have inspired vaudeville and shaped the Broadway musical as we know it today.
2nd Avenue is gone. You know, what we thought of as 2nd Avenue has disappeared.
You had the Yiddish Art Theater. The house still stands today. Now it's East Village Cinema. The stars that are in front of a Chase Bank, but they're walked all over. You can barely read the names.
There were dozens of venues and people flocked by the thousands.
And you had a whole subculture of Yiddish theater artists.
Today, Yiddish theater productions are few and far between.
Ladies and gentlemen, Godzilla's Moil! Godzilla's Moil!
However, we met one theater troupe who not only is keeping Yiddish theater alive, but bringing it to the streets of New York.
My name is Jenny Romaine.
My name is David Mandelbaum.
I'm Shane Baker.
I am the maestra of an intergenerational mob of Yiddish street performers called the Sukkos Mob.
I'm the artistic director and founder of the New Yiddish Rep.
I perform Yiddish theater, and I'm a Gentile. Is it uncommon for a Gentile to speak Yiddish? The only thing I can say is that these days it's uncommon for a Jew to speak Yiddish.
The native speakers are dying out, but I feel like it's my job and my interest to try to keep working with the language as much as I can and to honor it.
What are we going to lose if we don't keep Yiddish theater alive? We're going to lose our past. We're going to lose our identity. What we do today is going to determine whether or not there is any substantial Yiddish theater in the future.
We're trying to bring the streets to Yiddish theater. We're trying to bring the masses to Yiddish theater.
My people at the JCC, don't you want to be a member of the Synagogue?
The Sukkos Mob is a group of 20 Yiddish street performers led by Jenny. They perform every fall during the week-long Jewish harvest festival known as Sukkos.
She's wonderfully creative.
She's, as they say in Yiddish, a bren. I mean, she's got the spirit, and she comes up with insanely wonderful things.
We try to play like at least 10 to 20 times during the holiday of Sukkot. So we just like hit and hit and hit and hit, and they're quick, and we set up, and the show's about half an hour long, and very often we get chased by the cops.
A large part of this type of theater is spectacle.
When we take the Sukkos Mob to the streets, I think that the first reaction is going to be astonishment.
You're likely to see us at Union Square, Times Square, Harlem, different places in Brooklyn, and it's Sukkos all around town.
Trenne mal raus, Vindanen!
Trag dich von den guten Zeiten verbracht mit meiner Tate.
Das genommen ein Mensch mit der Blechhaffenhittel, gegeben ein grünem gestempelten Quittel. The Sukkos Mob is out there to show the kick-ass side of the Yiddish world.
Well, we're having the first rehearsal of the Sukkos Mob, and it's very exciting. We have never played instrumental music during business hours in this new studio. I don't know what's going to happen. We could get shut down, hopefully we will. We're going to have the musicians here. We're going to learn a bunch of music. We're going to read through the script a couple times and try to attack the beast of this new show. The introduction to the piece is like a series of 3 dances, and then we go into the sci-fi narrative. The dance moves, there's one dance that's like clouds, so that people dance with sheep's wool clouds. There's another dance that's a procession, which represents the years of wandering in the desert. And there's another dance which represents panic.
It's all so crazy and unusual. Here you can just go wild. I can't help but laugh and smile throughout the whole thing. I'm just having such a good time. I can't wait to see how people react.
It's a nature holiday, so we made all the costumes out of sheep's wool. Between the musicians and the mobsters and the designers, I cannot believe how talented all these people are.
Who's the biggest star in Yiddish theater in New York?
I'm the biggest star in the Yiddish world today.
How are you and David getting along during this?
David is not doing bad for an old man.
Ouch!
Expect by noon 1, he might need a nap. Is David jealous?
No, I'm not jealous. I have an abiding respect for his ability.
I'm gonna clean up the floor with these people. It's gonna be the Sukkos mop when I'm through with them, man.
David and Shane, I would say, are magnificent. They're a great addition to this whole crew, so I'm delighted.
Jenny was telling me that you and David both asked for your own dressing rooms.
Well, not together.
Think you'll be ready for next week?
Well, it has to be ready because we have an assignment. Yeah, that's the thing about show business. The show must go on.
Are we gonna be ready to perform next week? Not without my dressing room, we're not.
Since it's common for street performers to be harassed by police in New York City, it was clear that this was no easy task to pull off.
So leben der Sukkos Mob bis hinter 20.
With the logistical nightmare of finding a parking space in Manhattan and unloading a truckload of props, costumes, and instruments, they somehow managed to pull it off, and it didn't take long for a huge crowd to gather around.
People who haven't seen Yiddish theater are going to see something extremely interesting and extremely exciting.
We are the Sukkos Mob!
I thought it was fabulous, and I love that we just spoke Yiddish on the street without saying anything. Sukkos! Ayante von der Schnitzeit! And people are looking at each other like, what is that language? And they start to figure out what's going on.
We worry for ourselves and the planet!
People got into it. The crowd reacted pretty well. I have to say, it's 25 minutes. I've been in 3-hour shows that haven't been as strenuous.
Some true street spectacle.
Aber von der Hering ist mein Herz aufzugangen.
I'm not trying to save Yiddish theater, but what I can do is take responsibility for building.
It's a way to say to the entire city, hey, we're still here, we're alive, and we're still fighting to keep this alive.
When we started filming Punk Jews, we thought we were looking into a subculture, a fringe, a small group of people rebelling against institutionalized religion. But as word got out about the project, we began receiving stories from literally all over the world of people making culture their own and smashing stereotypes of what it means to be spiritual, religious, or Jewish. The more we look, the more we see that culture is something we create and not something that creates us. The Punk Jews movement is just the beginning.
most love, then you know you wrong. Like a Spartan all up in the Parthenon. I got it all in balance like it's Taji Schwan. With the Solomon flossing and the Argamon. Wild love about to change a whole paragon. Bronze around for the trap for the Babylon. About time for why to get this party on. And see I'm starving for some like it's Ramadan. Also this hip-hop balagon. But the stomach of my storm at a Ramadan. You say that rhymes, you wanna show me one. I don't gotta ask you, done told me song. Got it on Kazakh, you know we from. And it's all about the mitzvahs, the Bati bomb. Sticking with the Brits and Chicago Sean. Boy, exactly the squeeze that he topped the dome. Which official Christ you gon' deny? The state of the nation unified. Which official Christ you gon' deny? This is the state of the nation, do or die. Which official Christ you gon' deny? The state of the nation unified. Which official Christ you gon' deny? The state of the nation, do or die. 6 out of 14 don't know jack, and 3 out of 8 ain't even down like that. 1 out of 14 wanna bring it back, and 1 out of 36 wear black hats. 1 out of 4 make the lights go bling. 1 out of 7 chicks know they can't sing. 7 out of 13 cloaked in white. Hope 1 in 8 they know when they right.
Thought, like, in order to really get to like the highest heights, you have to sometimes go to the lowest depths.
After hitting rock bottom, Yishai met Mike, who helped him turn his life around and rediscover his Jewish roots. They recruited Mitchell and Pesach, and Moshiach Oi was born.
Mike, the guitar player, Moshiach Oi, is a very special person. You know, he's a very close friend of mine. All the people I'm really close with, people who are good friends of mine, are people I really have a lot of respect for. People who have really taught me a lot. Because all the friends I used to have, they didn't teach me anything. They taught me how to get high. Thank God, eventually, I found my own way and came back to on my own. And now I'm able to reinterpret what it means to be a Jew on my own terms. We're Earth Matters Cafe. It's an organic grocery and cafe on the Lower East Side. We're here learning the holy teachings of Tzaddik Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. Been doing this every Thursday night for a little while now. People have told me that what I do is sacrilegious. I remember when I was in yeshiva, there was one guy who heard my song Shema Yisrael, and the song is based on a traditional Jewish prayer. You know, the tune Shema Yisrael. That's actually a traditional Jewish tune and prayer. And I played the song for one guy, and he said that I'm taking the prayer and lowering it. I think that's just stupidity, because sometimes you have to express it in different ways that people in the world today can relate to. Not everyone can relate to going to a synagogue, sitting down. It can be kind of boring. If I scream Shema Yisrael at the top of my lungs, maybe it'll make people get into it a little more and really feel it. You're supposed to feel it. You're supposed to be on fire for it.
The sooner the Messiah will come.
Welcome to Long Beach. Welcome to the Moshiach Oi Palace. This is where the magic happens. We call this place Camp Shabbos. This is like the studio. You know, this is the concept, the brain. And what you see live is more like the heart and the lungs.
I grew up on Long Island. My mom's a convert from when I was a kid. I grew up going to yeshiva, and growing up going to yeshiva made me hate Judaism and hate Jews. When I was a teenager, I didn't want to tell people I was Jewish, because I went to yeshiva full of rabbis who were just full of themselves and told you what to do. After age 14, 15, I just stopped. I just started doing lots of drugs. I got really into punk rock. I used to go to a lot of punk shows, and that was my life, you know. I don't even remember 5 years of my life, because I was totally a drugged out zombie.
He went into the gutter, he went into the darkness, and they say in Hassidic
to them and how they choose to express it.
My name is Yishai, and I love to scream to Hashem all day, every day. I would describe my music as a punch in the face of godliness. I would compare it to old school punk rock.
Moshiach Oi is a Hassidic punk rock band from Long Island, New York, who praise God by screaming at the top of their lungs. Their goal is to bring the Mashiach, or Messiah, into the world through their music.
we're here in the Carlebach Shul, as it's well known. And here in New York, here the Carlebach Shul is also a mecca for people who wouldn't fit in otherwise in a shul. So it's entirely appropriate for us to be here because, you know, we don't necessarily fit in with Jewish programming. And for me to play here is an honor and a pleasure.
Alright, so punk rock isn't really a spectator sport, you know. You know, like get up and move and like mosh, smash into me, punch me in the face.
The crowd was awesome. The crowd was dancing, the crowd was lively. That's what I expect from the Carlebach Shul, because this is a place that the roots are about being alive, dancing, singing, you know. We got that here. I wasn't disappointed. So we played for, you know, we played like more than half our set, and then I was told by the rabbi who was sitting behind me, he's like, yo, you guys gotta turn it down.
What happened? I don't know. I was singing and here's how you bring light into the world. You get up in the morning and you scream, God!
Today in New York City, there is a new movement of people expressing Judaism in unconventional and awesome ways. This is a community asserting their Jewish identity, defying the norm, and doing so at any cost. These are those stories. This is Punk Jews. From Hassidic punk rockers to Jewish African-American activists, we cover badass politics, art, fashion, philosophy, and religion that you can't see anywhere else. Like many religions and cultures, Judaism struggles to bridge the gap between tradition and the modern world. Everyone seems to have a different and often contradicting interpretation of Judaism's ancient traditions. Does being Jewish mean eating bagels and lox? Or lighting a menorah on Hanukkah? Is it necessary to make a pilgrimage all the way to Jerusalem? Or is it enough to just walk over to the kosher deli? Do you need to belong to a synagogue? How about if you're a Hebrew school dropout? And what is the meaning behind the long beards and black hats? Challahs, shofars, bar mitzvahs, the Horah. We were raised in Jewish families, and even we wrestle with these questions. So we decided to go on a mission to gain real insight into what it means to be Jewish. But instead of speaking with rabbis, scholars, and academics, we asked punk rockers, hip-hop MCs, artists, and activists what Judaism means.
The next thing I knew, I couldn't hear myself.
See, people think there's like a half Moshiach volume. No. We don't have a halfway. Yeah.
People complained, they said it was too loud for them. What can I say? I guess Upper West Side isn't ready for Moshiach.
Other people turned down the PA and the mic shut off.
They shut us off in the middle of the song, better get ready. Ironically, they're not ready. That's what it comes down to.
It's a punk rock show. If the neighbors don't complain, it's probably not authentic.
We want to like really shake people up and like get them out of their seat.
This song is about this world we live in. This world is sheker. This world is nothing. There's only Hashem. People, wake up!
Moshiach means the Redeemer, and Oi means like, it's like an exclamation point. Some Jews are like, you know, we want Moshiach, yeah, every day we pray 3 times a day, we want Moshiach, Moshiach. So we're like, no, it's like Moshiach Oi, you know, like, we want Moshiach Oi, like now, like in your face Moshiach. When I'm on stage screaming, I'm trying as hard as I can to only focus on one thing, that I'm doing this for the sake of God, and not, God forbid, for my own sake, only to, you know, make God's name great in the world.
The members of Moshiach Oi are part of a unique subgroup of Hasidic Judaism that call themselves Nanachs, who can be seen in Israel dancing in the streets and on tanks, singing Nanach Nachman Nachman Meuman, which is the signature of their spiritual leader, Rebbe Nachman. They also put up stickers and graffiti that bear his holy name, and believe the more Nanach they spread,